Welcome, Explicados. Imagine two brothers from Manchester who seemed absolutely destined to fill massive stadiums, but at the exact same time were completely destined to destroy their own band from within. That's the wild paradox of Oasis.
Right at the center of this hurricane, you have Liam and Noel Gallagher. On one side, there's Liam, right? He's got this defiant, arrogant, completely nasal, and just magnetic voice. On the other side, you've got Noel, the older brother, the architect, the guy writing these massive, sweeping songs designed to be screamed back by thousands of people. And what's crazy is how perfectly these two opposites fit together. They literally took the frustration of working-class Manchester and forged it into these global anthems of confidence and escape. But here's the catch. The exact same fierce intensity that launched them into the stratosphere made it almost physically impossible for them to be in the same room together. So how did this whole explosive partnership actually begin? Well, it started with a single promise between two brothers. Let's jump back to the early 90s. Picture the rainy, industrial streets of Manchester. There was this struggling local band called The Rain. Liam joins up as their singer and says, "Hey, let's call it Oasis." Meanwhile, Noel is working as a roadie, but he's secretly sitting on this huge archive of incredible songs. He joins as the lead guitarist and basically says, "I'll take over, and we're taking this to the top." They start rehearsing obsessively, just dragging their amps through tiny, sweaty clubs and late-night drives. And the breakthrough? It happens in 1993 at this little venue in Glasgow called King Tut's Wah Wah Hut. Alan McGee, the head of Creation Records, happens to be there, sees this raw, insolent confidence radiating off them, and immediately offers them a record contract. Suddenly, all that massive ambition finally had an outlet. And boy, did they capitalize on it. They didn't just release music, they went on to define an entire British generation. By April 1994, they dropped their debut single, Supersonic. It was loud, it was working class, and it was completely unapologetic. Then, just a few months later in August, boom, they released Definitely Maybe. The album rockets straight to #1 and actually becomes the fastest-selling debut album in UK history at the time. You have to understand, these songs weren't coming from a place of wealth or privilege. They spoke directly from cramped bedrooms and dead-end jobs, and it completely struck a nerve with ordinary young people. Noel is writing these simple, bulletproof melodies, and Liam is singing them like they're already timeless classics. But, and you can probably see where this is going, as the band's growth exploded, so did the vicious arguments between the brothers. Now, the pressure for the second album was insane. Everyone was wondering, are these guys just a flash in the pan? In October 1995, Oasis answered that with What's the Story, Morning Glory. And honestly, this album didn't just succeed, it cemented their absolute cultural dominance. Think about tracks like Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger, and Champagne Supernova. These didn't just top the charts, they got permanently hardwired into the nation's collective memory. It was the kind of music that felt deeply personal in a small room, but completely epic in a massive stadium. And you can't talk about 1995 without mentioning the legendary Britpop chart battle. The media went absolutely wild pitching Oasis against their London rivals, Blur. It was Oasis's Roll With It squaring off against Blur's Country House. Now, technically, Blur won the battle for the #1 single that specific week, but Oasis won the war. They achieved this staggering cultural connection that went way beyond their Manchester roots. They became the ultimate symbol that an ordinary working-class life could sound absolutely majestic. This incredible momentum was building toward an undeniable peak, a weekend at Knebworth that would go down in rock history. I want you to really wrap your head around this number, 250,000. 250,000 fans over just 2 nights in August 1996 at Knebworth Park. It is staggering to think about. Just picture this endless, sprawling sea of people in a massive field, every single one of them belting out Noel's anthems at the top of their lungs. And there's Liam, completely motionless at the mic, hands behind his back, projecting this unbeatable aura. No choreography, no gimmicks. Just 2 years after their first single, they were literally on top of the world. But, as we know, the higher you climb, the harder the wind blows. Beneath that triumphant peak, invisible cracks were already forming. The tours were becoming incredibly chaotic. Interviews would frequently devolve into the brothers just hurling insults at each other. Shortly after that massive high at Knebworth, Liam actually skipped a major US show, forcing Noel to step up and sing lead vocals. The bond between them was so fragile, and honestly, it was only being held together by the sheer, unstoppable momentum of their own success. The machine was moving way too fast to stop, but the tension, it was at a boiling point. Which leads us straight into an era of massive excess and the beginning of a very slow fracture. As we hit 1997, things get pretty heavy. The sheer weight of being the biggest band on the planet was really taking its toll. They dropped their third album, Be Here Now. Now, the hype for this was so astronomical that it completely shattered sales records in a matter of days. But in hindsight, it became the ultimate symbol of 90s excess. We're talking incredibly long songs, massive walls of distorted guitars, endless partying, and just overwhelming pressure from the media. What felt so fresh and urgent back in '94 was starting to feel, well, like a really loud party that had just gone on way too long. And the late 90s and early 2000s were basically a war of attrition. The band fundamentally changed. You saw founding members like Bonehead and Giggsy walk away. Guys like Jem Archer and Andy Bell stepped in to replace them. The creative dynamics started shifting too, with Liam and the new guys contributing their own songs. But that core toxicity between the brothers, that remained completely unresolved. It wasn't just minor bickering anymore. We're talking temporary walkouts, incredibly tense concerts, and them literally demanding to travel on totally separate tour buses. Yet, incredibly, they managed to survive this chaos for years. Albums like Heathen Chemistry and Don't Believe the Truth kept shooting to the top of the UK charts. To the public, they looked like this resilient, unstoppable rock band. But the reality was, they hadn't fixed a single thing. They had just figured out how to completely avoid each other backstage. On stage, the music was still uniting tens of thousands of people. But offstage, the brothers could barely stomach breathing the same air. It couldn't last forever, and it all finally shattered at the Paris breaking point. It happened on August 28, 2009. Oasis was booked to headline a nighttime festival near Paris called Rock Insane. Just minutes, literally moments before they were supposed to walk out and face this massive crowd, a catastrophic argument erupted backstage. Guitars were swung, insults were screamed, and just like that, the concert was abruptly canceled. The fans were left staring at an empty stage, totally confused as the door finally slammed shut on Oasis. Shortly after that night, Noel released a statement saying he was officially quitting the band. He said he simply could not work with Liam for one more day. But let's be really clear here. Noel walking away wasn't just about one random fight over a smashed guitar in Paris. That night was just the final explosion of a massive pressure cooker. It was years and years of bitter rivalry, public insults, intense competition, and deep, unresolved family conflict finally boiling over. The trust was entirely, hopelessly gone. What followed was 15 long years of icy silence. The brothers completely went their separate ways. Liam formed a new band called BDI with the remaining members of Oasis, and Noel went off to launch Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. They forged their own paths, they released their own records, and sure, they still played Oasis songs at their gigs. But the idea of them actually burying the hatchet and reuniting, it seemed like a total fantasy. The music kept the fans loyal, but Liam and Noel were separated by a mountain of bad blood that seemed way too high to ever climb. But here's the thing about truly great music, it has a funny way of bringing people back together. The music simply refused to fade away. In fact, during that 15-year break, it somehow kept growing. Entire new generations of kids were discovering those timeless anthems. And then, in 2024, the completely unthinkable actually happened. Liam and Noel shocked the entire world by announcing a massive comeback. When tickets went on sale for the 2025 Live 25 tour, stadiums sold out in a flash. It was absolute proof that the unyielding passion of their fans hadn't diminished one single bit. A decade and a half hadn't shrunk the emotional power of those songs at all. Now, this reunion doesn't just magically erase the past. It doesn't undo the fistfights, the separate tour buses, or that disastrous night in Paris. But what it does prove is the undeniable, bulletproof magic of Noel's songwriting combined with Liam's voice. Oasis was always a phenomenon, built on a total contradiction. Two brothers who could create something absolute and immense together, but for the longest time just couldn't figure out how to survive each other. They reached the absolute summit of the world because of that unbeatable, swaggering confidence. And they broke apart because that intense fire simply had nowhere safe to rest. Remember, everything is explained here. See you in the next video.